Hey there, thanks for joining me. As I thought back about my personal development, my life experiences, my business training, there's one concept that came to mind that struck me as being really the most important concept I could share with anybody. And that's this idea of ownership. What happens out there is people often blame others for their present circumstances. They adopt a victim mentality. Nothing is their responsibility. And the things that are happening in their lives aren't a result of anything they've done or any actions they've taken. And it really is just the opposite. So first and foremost, we must take ownership of our lives and take full responsibility for where we are and the results that we've gotten and whether or not we've even achieved our goals. Many people don't realize that this is an empowering process. I think we've been conditioned to believe the opposite, which is that we should continue to blame other people, the government, or some external factor for where we are and who we are and any of the results that we've gotten so far in our lives. But for me, taking ownership of my life was an empowering process, and I think you'll find the same thing. And here's why. If you adopt the victim mentality, then change is up to them. It's up to some external factor that you may have no control over. But when you say, I'm responsible, then you can begin to see how you can change in a positive way. Change is now up to you. So you're not waiting on somebody or something else to bring about the change that you want to see in your life. Second of all, we must take responsibility for our careers. And I don't care what that means to you, whether it's being in a job or your freelancing career or your business career or even your music career. As we begin to take ownership of where we are, again, it's empowering. Now, you might not have the results that you want. And getting the results you want often takes much longer and requires more work than you even realize. But that can be both a good thing and a bad thing. And I'll share more about that in a second. But as you begin to say, right, it is up to me. I can make a difference. I can move towards those goals and those dreams that I have. And if I choose to not give up and then keep putting in the work, maybe even if I don't reach those goals, I'll come really close. And that's better than not having done anything at all. Oftentimes what happens is we say, well, my boss didn't give me all the information that I needed, or this other person didn't get in touch with me. But we should take it upon ourselves to reach out to the people that we need to. If you need to get in touch with somebody and you're waiting on somebody else to complete their portion of the project so you can get on with your part, send an email or give them a phone call. Or just keep on them until they get their part done so you can move the project forward. If you do feel you need more resources or you're just not sure where to start, ask follow-up questions. Ask other people in the office or talk to your boss directly and say, hey, I don't think I have everything I need on this project. I'm just not completely sure how to get started or how to move forward with this. Take it upon yourself to go and talk to them and ask them what you need to know and get the information that you need. Now I want to talk about some of the advantages of ownership. For example, I own the domain name musicentrepreneurhq.com. Nobody else owns that right now. As long as I keep paying the bills on that domain registration, I will continue to own that. I will own that domain and I will own that website property. And that's worth something. It may not be worth a lot like right now, but that value will continue to increase over time. So ownership is an amazing thing. In business, sometimes we have to think about whether or not to take on partners. When we do take on partners, now they own a portion of that business. Now, that isn't necessarily the worst way to go, but we also have to think about the consequences. And we have to think carefully about whether or not that partner brings complementary skills and whether they are the right fit. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's an investment, a business, or even just a guitar or a piano or something that you've purchased. You are now the owner of it and you have full control of it. So again, you can see how that would be empowering. But here are some of the downsides of ownership. We've already talked about responsibility. When you own something, you are now responsible for it. So if you and your spouse choose to have a child, you are now responsible for that child. Some people don't own up to that. I wouldn't recommend that. The downside is now you have to spend the money to maintain it. Let's say you do have a child, then you have to pay for their education and save up for that, and save up for diapers and food and all that kind of stuff. If you own a business, there are monthly expenses. There's really no getting around that. If you own a guitar, there will likely be some ongoing maintenance. You might have to replace the strings. You might have to get the frets dressed by a guitar tech, unless you can do it yourself. So there's often a cost attached to ownership. But I think the greatest cost of all isn't necessarily the financial side of things. Oftentimes, it's the time as well as the mind space it now occupies. Let's say that you're a bit of a pack rat, and I'll raise my hand and say, that's me too. I'm a bit of a pack rat, and I have a bunch of stuff that I probably don't need anymore, and I need to get rid of it. The problem is it takes time to do, and I have greater priorities in mind. So I have to either schedule it in my calendar and make time to do it, or I just end up leaving it. So the cost of ownership is oftentimes that it will take up a huge amount of mind space and resources that could be better allocated to things that are more important to you. And this was especially true for me in home ownership. When I used to have a home, really I couldn't see clearly. And it took up so much mind space for me personally that I became preoccupied with just how to pay the bills. And I couldn't really think about all the creative things I wanted to do or writing a blog post. I still continued to do some of those things, but it made it very difficult. So it's important to be aware of the cons of ownership as well, because you may have new responsibilities once you get that thing that you want so badly. And it's important to realize everything that you own. It doesn't matter if it's a little trinket or a brand new car. Now you are the owner of it and you are responsible for it. And it's going to take time, it's going to take resources, and it's going to take up mind space. So we have to be careful of what we choose to take ownership of. I'd be happy to find out how this video helped you. Please leave a comment below, and I'll see you again soon.